All right, back here on the Kristian Garic Show, we welcome in now Beau Beaullieu, Louisiana State Representative. 25 states hit the Biden administration with a lawsuit over climate action targeting Americans' retirement savings. Beau, explain this, and what is this administration doing?
Yeah, Kristian, I appreciate you having me on. They are taking action and discriminating against industries such as our fossil fuel industry in Louisiana through their their project that they call ESG investing. And essentially and the ESG, for your listeners, is environmental, social, and governance. And essentially what they're doing is boycotting those businesses in those different industries. And so what we are looking is to find which companies are boycotting those companies in Louisiana and which ones are being discriminatory against our Louisiana companies, and trying to put a stop to it. And it's, Kristian, there's two things, and one of it is number one, from what they're doing to our homegrown companies that have put food and water on the tables of all of your listeners and all the citizens in Louisiana. And then the other is with regards to all of our pension funds and public dollars. Should they be investing into companies that are taking these discriminatory actions against our Louisiana industries?
They have waged war, all-out war, on the oil and gas in Louisiana. This administration, it's very clear.
They've done it, and it's they've been gaslighting our country just in this movement, and now they're to the point where they're taking over boardrooms and filling these boardrooms with members that follow in their footsteps and are trying to move forward their cause and force an action on some of these corporate boards to where, as a whole, and this is throughout the country, it's not just in Louisiana, but from the legislative standpoint, we're going to be focused on what they're doing here in Louisiana. But there, it's a corporate raid on the boardrooms for their social and political agendas, and in Louisiana, we don't want to stand for it.
So the suit is 25 states hit the Biden administration with a lawsuit. So, excuse me, what's the next step?
I think the next step is to go in, and I know in Louisiana we're going to be looking at legislation, and I've been working with Treasurer Schroeder. As a matter of fact, I'm in Washington, D.C. now, and got to visit with him within the last couple of hours and talking about potential legislation. And I think what we're going to be looking at is trying, number one, to find out what companies and to have I'm thinking about having a resolution that has the treasurer go and publish a list of those companies that are boycotting our fossil fuel industry.
When y'all get that, send it over to me.
We will definitely do that. We'll definitely do that. And the second thing is, from an investment standpoint, with our pension funds and with our public trust dollars, we want to make sure that our investment managers aren't being forced to have a percent of their investments into these ESG investments. We want the sole focus of our public pension dollars and our state dollars to be for the betterment of those our folks that are receiving the pension benefits, and for the state. We don't want them to be forced to invest in something that is not based on safety for the investors and based on large growth factors. I mean, we want the two primary factors to be growth for the dollars that are there and safety for the shareholders, not on ESG and social and political agendas. Because look, here's the thing: the market doesn't have a head on it that says, "Hey, I prefer Republican" or "I prefer Democrat." It just wants to know in what direction that it's headed. And when you start to put a parameter like ESG investing around a portfolio manager, and all of a sudden we have a changing of the guard on a federal administration standpoint, it puts too much risk on those who are benefiting from our pension funds and ties the hands of those folks who are trying to manage the money. And we think that it should be surely the focus of the shareholders from a risk and reward standpoint, and not some kind of social and political agenda.
It's amazing how this administration wants to control nearly every aspect of our lives, going into our homes, telling us we can't have gas stoves, even in our education. I'll tell you this one, and I'm a little frustrated by this. I just learned this yesterday. There was a test that was in question my son had to take at a high school, and I'm not going to reveal the high school right now. But he told me that one of the questions on the test, well, I'll just leave it as was against something that are against my values. And I called the school, and I said, look, I want a copy of the test because I want to see. Because they did an investigation. They told me what my son reported to me was accurate, that was a question on the test. And it didn't pertain to the subject matter in the curriculum. But they told me I had to contact NCER to get a copy of the test because if they gave me a copy, then the test would be compromised, et cetera. So now getting through to NCER is almost impossible. And this is how they discourage parents from finding out content that they're teaching their children. They make it almost impossible to get a copy of what they're being taught.
Yeah, I think transparency, Kristian, and all these things is the most important. And that's kind of one of whether it's on the education side of things or on the spending side of things, if we have transparency, like in the resolution that we're looking to have the treasurer go ahead and publish about those companies that are boycotting our fossil fuel industry, I think the more we know as citizens in Louisiana and as taxpayers, we have to be responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollars. And if we see that our monies, our pension monies, our state monies are investing in or boycotting those industries that are helping generate tax revenue, helping put jobs into our state, I think at that point, once we know, we can take action from the ground floor up and do some good for our state.
Louisiana State Representative Beau Beaullieu here on the Kristian Garic Show. Beau, this is a little bit off of ESG, but I've explored a lot of topics on this show, and one of the shows I did earlier this week talked about these group of scientists that meet, and then they give the dieting advisories every 5 years they meet, and it was discovered that these doctors, I think it was 5 doctors total that participated in this, were bought and paid off by these big name brand Kellogg's, et cetera, General Mills, paid off to promote their products as healthy diets. And yet we all know cereal in its truest form, pasta, et cetera. Remember that pyramid dietary guideline that was out in the 90s and the early 2000s?
The old food pyramid, absolutely.
Yeah, but that was bought and paid for. So, and then they wonder why, as American people, as Louisiana citizens, why we question things like the vaccine and others. And they look at us like, you're crazy for questioning. Well, not so much. There's evidence that you're bought and paid for.
Yeah, I think whenever we do anything on a federal level, if we're going to be given guidance, I think you almost have to trust it, but not say trust it. You have to have some sort of ethical disclosure like the legislature has to do. And let's see what your income source is. Let's see who's paying you. Because, like, I had a very close friend of mine who passed away from breast cancer a couple of years ago, and she went through a whole diet regimen, and we got to, as a family and as a group of friends, we got to learn about what kind of impacts our diet does on our health and our outcomes from that. And it's amazing how much food controls that. And so when you see these doctors on a federal side given this guidance and you're later learning that they've been bought and paid for, it's not good for any of us. And I think on a national side, we need to demand some disclosures and want to know whose payroll they're on and what pharmaceutical or food companies they're being bought and paid with.
Is there anything you can do at the state level with legislation?
On the state? Yeah, I think what we can do is through our Commerce Department, through our Commerce Committee, we can look at some regulatory bodies and from on a disclosure standpoint, if the state is going to stand up and give guidance, I think we can definitely regulate that from the your normal FDA type of approvals. All that is done on a federal level, so it's going to be hard to hold the hands of the federal guidance. But at some point, we could do some concern requests to our federal delegation and ask them to do something. It's hard for us to control on the federal level some of those items, but absolutely any kind of health conditions that comes out of LDH, Louisiana Department of Health, we can definitely put some handcuffs on them and make sure that they're disclosing all of those types of ethical things that are holding them back.
Louisiana State Rep Beau Beaullieu, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it. Get back to
Kristian, thank you. God bless you and to all your listeners.
Get back to Mardi Gras in D.C. I know you guys are up there handling that, and show them how to really party.
Big John Ilk sends his love to y'all.
Tell him I said hello. All right, thanks, Beau. Appreciate it. All right, we'll get our fish and game report with Captain Jimmy Corley next here on the Kristian Garic Show on WGSO.